Part of our meeting. The time is 5:30. The date is January 23rd, and this is being held in the Joe N. Idelett Jr. Teacher Education Center. It's a great time for our awards and presentations. Dr. Moore, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 3 presentations this evening, and we'll start with Casual for a Cause, and we'll turn it over to our Public Information Officer, Ms. Maddox.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for being here with us tonight. We have just a few presentations, but very important presentations. And our first one is, like Dr. Moore said, our Casual for a Cause presentation. Each month we have an organization that's been selected in our school district that our students, teachers, and staff members, in exchange for a day to be casual, they make a donation and we collect money for that organization. And this month we are proud to say that we collected $2,367.89 for the Humane Society of Vero Beach. And we have Miss Kate, our Chief Executive Officer, and Tracy Kinsley, our Chief Communications Officer, here with us tonight, or maybe just Tracy. Tracy, would you like to come up to the podium, please? I'll let you say a few words before I hand you the check.
Thank you. Our CEO, Kate, apologizes that she's not able to get here. We're actually dealing with a cat hoarding case at the time. But on behalf of everybody at the Humane Society of Vero Beach and Indian River County, both two-legged and four-legged, we want to say thank you very much, and thank you for choosing us for your December month. So thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe you'd like to stand right in the middle of your photo.
Yes, I could do that.
Stand right over there. I'm going to hand you.
And you might recognize my last name.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so we'll stand up. Congratulations. Thank you.
And here are the real checks.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Can I post it?
Absolutely. And we would like to recognize Storm Grove Middle. They raised the most money with $450.22. Yes. Next, we have a short video on our Stars of the Year finalists. Now, most of you may know that we had our gala on Friday. We hope that you were able to attend. We're going to rewind a little bit, show you our video of the day that we went out and recognized and picked up all of our Stars of the Year finalists, and then introduce you to a couple of very important people. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. This is your Superintendent, Dr. Moore, and today is one of the funnest days here in our school district. Today is the opportunity we get to go and surprise our 5 Teacher of the Year finalists and our 5 Employee of the Year finalists. So come on, enjoy us. We're going to take you with us. Let's go have some fun and make the day of a few outstanding educators. We're selected as one of the 5 finalists for the School District of Indian River County as one of our Employees of the Year. So we're all here to celebrate you. Selected as one of the 5 finalists for the district. So congratulations. You are selected as one of the 5 finalists for the District of Employee of the Year. So we want to congratulate you. All right, come on, Kelly. We're one of 5 finalists. So congratulations. Thank you. one of the 5 finalists for Employee of the Year. You represented your school nicely. Congratulations. Identified as one of the 5 finalists for our entire school system, so surprise! He's selected as one of the 5 finalists to be the Teacher of the Year for the entire county. So congratulate him again. Coming in to bombard your class. One of the 5 finalists to be Teacher of the Year. Ms. Kuntz is the Teacher of the Year for Vero Beach Senior High School, right? She's also now one of 5 finalists for the entire school district to be our district's Teacher of the Year. Give her a big round of applause. Where's Ms. Wagner? He was selected as one of the finalists for the entire county as a finalist for Teacher of the Year for our county. So give her a big round of applause.
So again, congratulations to all of our Stars of the Year and our finalists, and that is always such a fun day, and it's a very close second to our night on Friday night, where we gathered all of our Stars of the Year for recognition, and then gathered all of our finalists at the very end, and 2 were crowned, the District Employee of the Year and the District Teacher of the Year, and we would like to recognize them tonight. I'm going to call you up here one at a time, and I'm going to start with our Employee of the Year, Miss Liz Geoffrey. She is the administrative assistant to the principal at Indian River Academy, and she might have a new business with T-shirts, I'm not sure, but I really hope that she explains.
I will explain.
Yes, I hope that you explain your shirts to us.
All right. First of all, I just want to say thank you, board members, Dr. Moore, and to my incredible sister and my staff that came here tonight. It is such an honor to represent the school district. I just started my 26th year. I've had some great administrators, including Mrs. Berenborg, and Kelly, who I just love and adore. And each time you get a new administrator, you kind of worry, like, are they going to get me? And I have been fortunate enough that they all have gotten me and they let me do my thing. And so I just love my job, and so let me explain the shirts. So my new shirt that I got for winning District Employee of the Year. I like a challenge. I always like a challenge, and I never back down from a challenge. And starting this year, Miss Norwood, our assistant principal, she puts messages up on the board each day, and it's a question of this or that, yes or no. And I don't know, there was one day, and I'm like, somebody answered the question. I was like, I don't think Dr. Moore would really like you to answer the question that way. And they're like, so every day now they'll say, what do you think Dr. Moore would say today, Liz? And so I answer it for the both of us. And so it got to the point where they're like, is he calling you every day and giving you the answer? And I'm like, no, I'm just trying to support my superintendent. And they dared me, and they're like, you're going to get a shirt. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get a shirt. So now I have a shirt for every month to support Dr. Moore. It depends on the holiday. What's going on. Wait till you see the one next week for Valentine's Day.
Bless America.
So that's where the shirt idea came from, because I just want to support our district, and I wanted everybody to see you in a different way. Because, you know, you put the hammer down sometimes, and they're like, oh. And I'm like, you're just not getting him. So you ask Kelly, and I'll say, you're just not getting it, people. You just need to support him and go with the flow, right? Isn't that what I do every day at school? And it puts a smile on their face. And it's it is them seeing you in a different light. So the other day the question was, write something about somebody at school, and of course I love to see Liz's support of Dr. Moore. So yeah, so I'm there to support you and everybody else here, and I just want to thank my parents in heaven, because they instilled in me, and my sister can tell you, the values that we grew up with, that your motto 24/7, 7 days a week, twice on Sundays. My dad was an oil and heating man, and the phone rang at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You got up and you did your job. And my mom raised 5 kids, and those are the values they instilled in me, and that's what I'm trying to bring to our kids here in Indian River County. And I just love them, and I can't wait to see the rest of them. My kindergartners grow to 5th grade, so I'm here for another 5 years. So thank you so much, everybody. I am truly honored.
Thank you.
And that shirt says DKM approved, so
right, yeah.
it's official, right.
A little picture of my head, that's all.
All right, next, last but certainly not least, we have our District Teacher of the Year, Ashley Bangert. She's the math coach at Sebastian Elementary School of the Arts. Come on up, Ashley.
I don't really know who follows that. That was beautiful. First, I want to say thank you to our board members and to Dr. Moore. I don't know if you all know this, but 2 of your board members were people who were in my life as I grew up. Dr. Jones was my principal, and Ms. Berenborg was my 4th grade teacher. So I am a product of Indian River County, and it is an honor to be given this award as the Teacher of the Year. I hope I can make everyone who helped raise me proud as we move forward in this journey. I would like to thank Ms. Hart for being our fearless leader and helping support me through my first year as an instructional coach here in the district, and also all of the staff that helped to make me a better person at Sebastian Elementary School, and of course to my family, who most of you know my husband here in this room, but he puts up with a lot with me, and so do my kids, because I spend quite a bit of time making sure that we are the best we can be at the Nest. So thank you guys so much. It's an honor to be here tonight.
Thank you, congratulations.
Okay, before we end presentations, ladies, let's get some photos up front.
All right, turn around.
I was looking for it. All right, ready? 1, 2, and 3. Okay, let's get friends and family. Come on.
Come on.
Miss Hart. Miss Hart. Yeah, exactly. Tish,
We'll send you a picture.
both.
The amount of time you spend with her.
There you go. All right. Ready? 1, 2, and 3. Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Congratulations.
Dr. Moore, that concludes presentations tonight.
And we're looking forward to bringing our video presentation of our gala, which was Friday night. Absolutely outstanding, fun event. Always a unique experience. But with that, it's short and sweet. That concludes, and we'll resume at 6.
Adjourn until 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call the school board business meeting to order. Today's date is January 23rd. The time is 6 p.m. This is the Joe N. Idolet Teacher Education Center. Please stand for the pledge and colors presented by Sebastian River High School Navy Junior ROTC.
Up, bow, face. Raise up. Done. Ready and gentlemen. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Done. Ready, cut. Done. Done. Mark. Post. Post. And salute. Ready, two. Post. Goes. Mark. Forward. Mark.
Thank you, Sebastian River High School. All right, board members, we are now on adoption of the orders of the day. Are there any items board members wish to move from consent to action?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
we did just get in the policies that were discussed during workshop. That was policy 2520 and 2522. As we typically do, we place them under consent. Because we just placed them, I think it might be a good idea that we place them on action, just to give board enough time to review. All we simply did was capture the conversation today to update those policies, but I think we'd be on the safe side if we pull those to action to discuss.
Okay, they were 2520 and,
Yep, it's item 9B, to be precise.
Got it.
We just added it, so that we, worth having the conversation. And I also like to conduct my presentation immediately following presentations,
thank you very much.
the third presentation.
Yes,
Just question, is what's in here the update, or do you have something physical to give us?
We can provide copies. What's in there is in fact the update.
Okay.
all right, thank you. Any other board members? Yes, Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, I'd like to, let me get back there, I'm sorry. Move from 11B, consent 11B to action, and that is the approval of the Educational Facilities Supplementary Plant Survey number 6.
Okay. 11B.
Do you want to move it or pull
Discuss.
it?
Well, we didn't make a definitive
Fair enough.
answer,
You're
so
correct. You're right.
during action, we can
Discuss it.
discuss it or remove it. I mean,
Alright.
approve it or remove it. At least that's what I understood from earlier.
Correct.
And then, Madam Chair, I'd like to move, and I don't know if it didn't happen automatically, there was an item from earlier, workshop board item 4F, return of borrowed library book, i.e. The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. That was my discussion item earlier. We didn't make it because of time, and I'd like to move that to the discussion for this evening.
Got it. And I would like to move one thing to discussion. That's just basically the time that we have for workshops and board discussions. I just want to make sure we have enough time, so I'd like to discuss that with our board too. All right, I think I have all of that. Now, so then we go to our gifted education proclamation. Dr. Moore.
Madam Chair, we have to vote on that.
I'm sorry, okay. Motion to accept the adoption of the orders of the day as amendment.
Also move.
So move, second. Dr. Pasca, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. All right, gifted education proclamation.
To recognize Miss Ainsley Seeley for this next proclamation.
Thank you. My name is Ainsley Seeley, and as an ESE program specialist, one of the privileges I have is overseeing our gifted programming at SDIRC. And so with me today are members of the Teacher of the Gifted team, Karen Nickla, Megan Timmer, Deborah Morse, Julie Brossum, and Mikey Marini. And all of those, yes, and all of those teachers are going to come up along with our students. We did ask Ms. Brossum and Ms. Marini because combined they have over 30 years of gifted education here in Indian River County. We did ask the two of them to work with the students from their respective schools and prepare our proclamation today. So students and teachers, if you guys would come on forward. The students this evening do represent Rosewood, Osceola, Glendale, and Citrus Elementary Schools.
All right.
Good evening. This is a proclamation designating the month of January 2023 as Gifted Education Month.
Whereas our children and youth are one of our nation's greatest resources, accordingly, all students with intellectual, academic, creative, leadership, and artistic gifts and abilities need to be appropriately identified, instructed, and supported. And
whereas just as giftedness comes in a variety of domains, it has no limits related to age, race, ethnicity, or national origin, religion, multilingualism, and or exceptionality. And
Indian River County Schools strives to provide intellectual and academic opportunities for gifted students.
To maximize their potential through collaboration, innovation, and problem solving while supporting their unique social emotional needs. And
where strong gifted education programs support the Florida Department of Education commitment to provide our children with a world-class education that fully prepares them for college and or a career in the 21st century. And
whereas Gifted Education Month is time to reflect on how gifted students are identified and served in Florida, delivering an equitable education for all our children, including identifying students who will benefit from gifted programs and services. And
whereas collaboration between school district staff, families, organizations, community members, and the students themselves serve as the critical foundation for supporting all gifted learners and
Now therefore, be it proclaimed by the District School Board of Indian River County, Florida, that the District School Board designates the month of January 2023 as Gifted Education Month. Adopted by the District School Board of Indian River County, Florida, on this 23rd day of January 2023.
Thank you very much. The chair calls for a motion to accept the proclamation.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Dr. Posca. Discussion? Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye. Well
Right.
done.
Congratulations, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, buddy, girls, why don't you move up so we can see behind you?
Yes, perfect. And after I take my photo, you guys wait for your parents for a minute, okay? For your families to take a photo. Ready? 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now hold right there. Families, go ahead.
Now the families can take you to dinner.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And our next
Hey, buddy, come here.
presentation is conducted by Ms. Dampier. You want to set this up? I don't see Ms. Holden. Where are you at? There she comes.
Good evening. We're so excited to bring forth a proclamation for the designation of School Choice Week, which is on January 22nd through the 28th. I bring forward Mrs. Holden, who will read the proclamation for us, and also I think Mrs. Rosario will have some statements from them.
Good evening. I was not told we could recruit cute children to read the proclamation for us, so I apologize in advance for being the director of enrollment reading you the proclamation. This is a proclamation designating the week of January 22nd to 28th as School Choice Week. Whereas every child in Indian River County deserves access to the highest quality education possible, and whereas school choice allows families to explore and identify the best education options available to serve their child's needs, and whereas in the School District of Indian River County, we recognize the essential role that an education system plays in preparing children to become great citizens and successful adults, and we offer many types of public and non-public schools, as well as programs for families who educate their children in the home. And whereas research indicates that increasing access to multiple schooling options improves the performance of children, regardless of income, geography, or academic ability. And whereas the School District of Indian River County ensures the success of all students through a variety of school choice options, such as vocational career technical education programs, traditional public schools, magnet schools, charter schools, virtual school, private school, homeschool, and whereas the School District of Indian River County provides bus depot stop locations through our transportation department for families that utilize public school choice, and whereas National School Choice Week is recognized across the country by millions of students, parents, educators, schools, and organizations to raise awareness of the need for effective educational options, and whereas the state of Florida has officially recognized Florida School Choice Week to be January 22nd to 28, 2023, and the same for subsequent years to also align with the dates of National School Choice Week, therefore, the School District of Indian River County will celebrate and recognize school choice as a parent or guardian's fundamental right through various activities and events to raise awareness of the different types of educational options parents can choose for their children. Now therefore, be it proclaimed by the District School Board of Indian River County, Florida, that the District School Board designates the week of January 22nd to 28th, 2023 as School Choice Week, adopted by the District School Board of Indian River County, Florida on this 23rd day of January 2023.
Ms. Rosario?
We can vote on it, and I can
Okay.
talk, unless you want me to do it now.
Yeah, go ahead, and then we'll vote when you're finished.
Yeah, this is just wonderful. I'm so excited. Obviously, National School Choice Week is this week. It is important for us as a district to recognize it. Putting parents at the helm of making the major decisions for their children, including their educational environment, whatever is best for their child, is so critical. But with that said, this district really does truly support all of the options that are in the proclamation, which is fantastic. I will tell you that if you go on National School Choice, or rather schoolchoiceweek.com/Florida, you'll be able to see a roadmap of the different choice options for Florida schools. And even if you're not in Indian River County, parents everywhere will be able to kind of search their local, wherever they live, their residence by zip code, and then they can kind of see what are the options in their district. But for us, in Florida, in general, there are as was mentioned, traditional public school, public charter, magnets, online learning, private schools, home education. We all know that I'm a homeschool mom who also has my son in Sebastian River High School, and it's just really a fantastic opportunity that I can make that decision for my son, and every other parent should be able to make that decision for their child as well. So I am happy to support this proclamation. I will also share that this week the district will highlight school choice throughout the week on our social media platforms. Schools will also do it from their end. We have the videos that will be going out of our school choice, because we are a school choice district. So those videos will be coming out every day this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. There's a schedule here. There are school messengers that are going to go out. The school choice lottery first run notices will be released on February 6th. And the application for the 2023-2024 school year will reopen starting in February. So there are lots of other activities that we have done throughout the school year to honor school choice. And one of those opportunities is through the FACES campaign, which we go out into every school. And I'm sure, Dr. Moore, I'm going to kind of bring it over to you so you can talk a little bit more about FACES. But that's just one of the efforts that we have been doing. We've been ramping up the messaging going forward on all of these with regard to school choice. So I'm happy to support it. Dr. Moore, if you can talk on FACES.
Just briefly on FACES, that is an opportunity we're connecting with every elementary and every middle school, really bringing the opportunity to connect authentic engagement with parents to ensure that we're strengthening the parent and school relationship, just not come in and volunteer and be of service to us, but how can we be in service to you in building strong relationships while at the same time connecting our community to all of the resources that are in our community. No other community has so many not-for-profits who are solely in the business of helping and supporting families, and we know that we can do a better job in that. While I have the floor, I do want to acknowledge Ms. Holden. You are correct. The kids did it better. But at the same time, the service that you have provided under the leadership of Ms. Dampier upon my arrival, this was always a point of frustration in providing service and really just meeting the needs of children, whether it's recruiting, whether it's going into these specific programs or signing up for the magnet schools, the homeschool service that we provide. You have made all that go away, which is absolutely outstanding. Way back in the back, Ms. Emerson, the work you've done around creating the videos and looking at meaningful choice in schools for us as a district, just absolutely outstanding. We've really continued to push this district forward by challenging ourselves to think differently about how we're educating our children, because we need to make sure they're ready to be successful in today's world. So I thank both of you. Thank you too, Pam.
Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. Just one thing before we vote. Dr. Moore, as you know, I've been in this county a long time, and this didn't come alive until you came. So I appreciate that, because school choice is important for each and every child. I really do. Okay, I call for a motion to accept this proclamation on school choice.
Make a motion.
Ms. Rosario,
I'll
second. And Ms. Barrenborg, any discussion? Vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, this motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, Ms. Holden, and Ms. Dampier, and Ms. Emerson. Thank you. Okay, now, Dr. Moore.
All right, thank you. I'm going to pull up my presentation right now. This is a follow-up presentation. I made a commitment to our board to go over some mid-year numbers. This is going to look specifically at some discipline as well as our mid-year data that we have academic to this point. Let me set up this slide for you. It's looking at discipline. ODRs are office disciplinary referrals, just to set it for those folks at home who don't teach or speak our lingo. When you look at the 18-19, which is the blue, that's all of last year, and then 21-22, which you know was an impacted year because of the pandemic, that's all of last year. And then when you see the green, that's current year to date. So when you compare us from 18-19, which is a non-impacted COVID year, to this year, you could see office discipline referrals are probably going to be right at or a little bit above where we were pre-pandemic. And that's to be expected based on the impacts of the pandemic. We continue to look at ways to meet the needs of children based on the impacts that we see. Also, when you look at total secondary, obviously most office disciplinary referrals come from our secondary schools. And you can see we're going to be right at in comparing the non-impacted COVID year 18-19 to where we are 50% through the year at 44-28. So we're going to come in right where we were pre-pandemic. This kind of goes back to the conversation we were having today, and anyone who's watching now, I would really encourage you to go back and listen to our workshop. Our board had an absolutely outstanding conversation around cell phones. And listening to their constituents, there is a definite concern regarding cell phones. So I would encourage each and every single one of you to go back and watch some of the action that I have been charged to take based on that feedback. Very similar to that conversation as you watch it. Hear the same thing from Ms. Friedland and our union and our executive staff, that cell phone usage at our school sites. We have to be more aggressive in what we're doing. We have to be clearly defining our expectations. So you're hearing it in all places and all spaces. This is the opportunity to learn from our teachers, to be in response of our board in order to ensure that we could make sure a cell phone, which is a privilege to have, is not a disruption to any one person's education or doesn't allow any person to be a victim of a senseless misuse of a phone. But I referenced that behavior because I think it was one of the board members who kind of mentioned inappropriate behavior or continuation of level 2 behavior. And as you can see on this slide, those are the two highest things that we have. So as we begin to look at our data moving forward, to be more efficient at problem solving, we want to kind of recapture some of this progressive discipline so we know exactly where this discipline is coming from. So this just gives you a breakout of where we are current to year. And as we go into the upcoming school's year, you're going to see more specific what is the continuation of which specific behavior, so we can be more effective at ensuring the appropriate consequence and behavior modification is absolutely taking place. All right, let's look at discipline, specifically suspension. So the non-education folks, OSS is an out-of-school suspension. ISS is an indoor suspension, that's the middle bars. And then ALTOS is an alternative to suspension program where you go to an alternative site and you see some of those numbers there. Same design. You can see in the non-impacted year, 18-19, a total of 2,253. We didn't have the ALTOS program, so you see in 18-19, that's why that number was so high. When you look at the Aspire, you can see that number is at 1422. For current year to date. What you're going to see in the progression of discipline is a higher increase through the remainder of the year in the second semester of out of school suspensions. When those behaviors don't modify and you've had the indoor suspension, it is appropriate then to move to a more severe consequence. So you can see here, all things considered and equal, we're about where we were in 18-19, pre-pandemic, to where we currently are now. And I think as we continue to problem solve, these are opportunities for us truly to ensure we as a community are speaking in one voice regarding the expectations of how children behave in schools. I think we've made significant improvements this year, but by no means am I saying the job is done. Matter of fact, I think we're just getting started in listening and learning, and we're going to continue to improve on that. We have a number of code of conduct meetings still to take place, so please check back to our websites. We would love your input on that. So we have a code of conduct that is in fact reflective of our entire county. Now, that was relatively straightforward. Let's talk about academic data that we have to this point. Let me set this up by saying this is a new academic assessment. So we're going under FAST, where previously it was FSA. So that changes things significantly. So when you look at this slide here, this is the percents of level 1 through 5. So you can see in 21-22, under the FSA exam, 26% of our students were level 1. Okay, so that was the actual outcome in 21-22. Now, when you look at progress monitoring 1, it's 44%. Now, one of the big shifts that across the state, that the entire state is struggling with, when they give you that exam, it is not a predicted result. It's as if you're taking the end of year exam on the first day of school or the second day of school when they took this. So when you see, oh my goodness, only 44% of the students are level 1, well, they have 9.5 more months of instruction to move to the level 3, 4, or 5. What you can see at the bottom, you look at the percent 3 or above, and you'll see that the state average at the first progress monitoring was 33, and then they moved to 38, which was a improvement of 5 percentage points. When you look at us, we were at 30 and moved to 36. So our rate of growth over that same time is actually 1 percentage point higher in terms of growth. So if we continue that growth, we think we're going to exceed the state. Just simple mathematics and playing it out. But what this looks at is, for me, what jumps out is the level of 4 and 5. We still, as a district, need to continue to grow levels 4 and 5. That means we're just not teaching to the middle. We're providing quality instruction for all students. So this data, right now, it doesn't have the models that allow us to predict what the outcome is going to be, because we simply haven't had the opportunity to do a regression study. So this is live, in-time data. We do have a number of students who are just on the verge of being proficient. So we think that's extremely encouraging. That cut score, we're seeing students right there, and there's plenty of time for us to ensure at the end of April and May, when we take these assessments, we're either where we're at under FSA or exceeding it. Still don't have those particular outcomes. That was ELA. In mathematics, the data is a little bit more straightforward, and you can see, just jumping to the bottom, the state was at 14 and moved to 31. We were down at 9 and moved to 30. So an improvement of 21 percentage points. In the same time, the state only moved 17. So once again, play that rate of growth over the course of the entire year. We're expecting to exceed the state's performance, meaning we're moving at a faster clip, even though we started below where the state was. So once again, significant opportunities to improve this data set with more than enough time in order to do so. Just this past Friday, we had the opportunity to sit with each of our principals, our district staff, and go school by school, look at their academic data, and say what shifts of instruction do we have to take in order to ensure we hit the mark for each and every single student. Now, this is a combination. These are the EOCs. So it's important to note, just to know, all the growth for anyone who is a level 1 or level 2, school grades won't get any credit for any of that. That is significant because you can't determine what a learning gain is this year because they haven't had this assessment to do the comparison. Schools are only going to be graded on the students that are 3 above in reading, math, and science. So there's 7 components in grading a elementary school. They're only going to have 3. So the learning gains in the lowest 25% in both ELA and math off the table this year. So that's significant. EOCs are still involved. So this data sets up, and it is very comparable to previous years. So looking at 5th grade science, the 21-22 monitoring district comparison was 52. The actual outcome in 21-22 was 49, and then 52 for this year. So we're right where we were at this point last year, and we're actually anticipating the outcome to be a little bit higher than it was in previous years. This is not looking at growth. This is looking at a new set of 5th graders taking the same assessment that last year's 5th graders took. 8th grade, we were at 45 at this time last year. The outcome was 47. We're very encouraged to see this year we're at 52. So we're 7 percentage points higher than where we were this time last year. Biology, we were at 56 this time last year. The overall outcome was 53, and we're 2 percentage points below where we were this year. Very disappointed with this number. Actually met with the assistant principals and principals regarding this number. We fully expect this number to be over 65 at the end of the year. So this is a number we thought should be higher. There's some modifications, a little bit more reteaching that has to take place, but we know we will get it done. Civics last year was 63 at this time. The outcome was 62. And we are at 63 again, so we're right where we were last year. U.S. history, significant improvement this time last year, 58. The overall outcome was 57, but right now, this year, we're at 76. So that's absolutely encouraging. When you're looking at algebra and geometry, once again, new assessment, so we don't have a comparable as to where we're going to be, but you can see the rate of growth, which is very comparable to that of the state. So we're not looking at specific growth measures here. We're just looking at overall outcome. We can't say what a predicted model would be. So typically those numbers would both, algebra is significantly higher than geometry, but we know that we'll get there. Now, graduation rates that were just released. Pre-pandemic, once again, 18-19, our state ranking was 21, 89%. That's no impact of the pandemic. The results that just came out, 95%. That's the 4th in the state. We're one of 4 districts that are at the 95% average. This is with all state assessments back in play. You had to pass the 10th grade ELA assessment as well as the algebra or geometry in the other schools. So significant improvements in maintaining that 95 with those assessments back in place. When you look at the school district of Indian River graduation rate, point increase, actually 6 percentage points in comparison to the overall state, just 0.6. So this is looking at last year where they didn't have those assessments in place. They were waived, rightfully so, because of the pandemic, but last school year they were not. So you can see the impacts of that across the rest of the districts, but here in the Indian River County, we're able to maintain from 2018-19 to 21-22. Some areas that stick out in terms of growth, graduation rate for Treasure Coast, we're number 1. We're proud of that, and we'll wear that badge of honor. And for the 12th year in a row, we outperform the overall graduation rate of the state. So significant improvement from a systems perspective. When you're looking at our like schools and districts, including the state, this looks at last year to this year. And you can see only just a 0.4, which still averages out to the 95, but Charlotte 3, the state 2.8, Martin 3.4, St. Lucie 3.7, 3.4 for Brevard, Osceola 4.5. So a lot of work in making sure students are getting the services and support that they need in real time to make sure they graduate on time is contributed to some of the success that we're seeing. And both Vero Beach and Sebastian River Middle High School, both at 96. Let me actually turn the slide itself up here. And then overall graduation rates by subgroup, once again, you can see 10th for black graduation rate at 90. Hispanic is at 8th, white 97, which is 4th, students with disabilities 4th, economically disadvantaged is at 6th at 92. So significant work being done around graduation. This is just other areas I just kind of wanted to highlight, aligned to our district's strategic plan. So parent workshops offered, we're now at 83 for the second quarter. A target was 65, so we know whether we're going to exceed or hit that specific target. Opportunities for community members to engage in district activities. The target was 70, we're already at 43, so we know we're going to hit or exceed that target. When you look at parent accessing focus, 88 was the target. We're at 90% right now, so we're going to continue to push on there. I know we've met that target. That is absolutely outstanding. Supplemental grant funding, Ms. Emerson, once again. This was a bold move that the board said, hey, if we can bring on one grant writer, that's great, but if we can bring on two and pay for them or have them pay for themselves, why not do it? Because we're the financial future of a possible recession. If we can get extra money now, let's go and get it. And as you can see, the target for the school year was 3.52. Halfway through the year, we've already secured $4.1 million. So we're going to have to adjust that target. We're just not going to say, well, Ms. Emerson, take the rest of the year off. We're going to increase the target because we need as absolutely much money as we can have. And there's some very quick just reflections and key considerations. There's clear evidence that we need to effectively communicate to students that each assessment is a priority. In our secondary schools, students, wow, this is the second of the third. It wasn't like in previous assessments. We need to make sure that we're communicating. We're going to push out a campaign to the entire community to make sure parents understand in that third progress monitoring assessment. Because you're calling it progress monitoring doesn't mean there's not accountability attached to it. Progress monitoring doesn't seem as if there's accountability. There is accountability. This is the exact same accountability as if it was FSA when we take this assessment in April or May. I've already discussed it being a baseline year with new assessments, which makes it very, very hard to have a predictive model. Limit data to make meaningful normative comparisons. So typically we're hoping to get across all districts where we were and where we want to go in terms of a district in this first year. That data is absolutely limited. Lack of ability to conduct regression studies due to the changes in assessments. When I say a regression study, typically what I present to you guys is at the end of the year, if a student scores 47 at the mid-year assessment, we know a 47 in the mid-year will equate to a student being level 3 or level 4 or level 5. We just don't know that. So we don't know what a 47 now means, and that could be his overall performance. He scored a 47 on the assessment, but we know we have 4 more months to teach him, and typically a 47 would yield a score of 3. That's the regression model because this is the first year that we don't have that information. And then disaggregating data of the assessments and teaching our teams and leaders is something that we're continuing to do to ensure we're having those decisions as close to kids as possible. We're learning from not only the instruction, but where the kid lands within the assessment that he's ultimately going to take at the end of the school year. So that is a brief update as to where we are, and we'll continue to update the board and be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, board members, questions, comments? Ms. Berenborg?
Sure. Thank you for that. I saw the data was grades 3 through 8. Will school board members get a breakdown by grade and cohort?
Absolutely. We can provide that to the board. I don't have it in anything to compare it to, but absolutely.
Get an idea so we can kind of, that way when you send it to us next year, we have that data at the same time, we can kind of get a comparison too. You made a comment on one of the screens that comparing 5th graders from this year that took the same assessment that last year's 5th graders took. I think you meant They're a different cohort of fifth graders, right?
It's a different cohort, but they're taking the same
Different-
FSA, maybe not the same exact
They're taking a
assessment.
different test, though.
Same standards, yes.
Okay, same standards, but different test. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, yes.
Okay. That's all.
Oh, Dr. Posca?
No, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Ms. Rosario?
Yes, Dr. Moore, can you put the slide back up to the,
Which one?
the one on the ELA and the math? There was, I think, English was first,
Mm-hmm.
the comparison.
It's slide 2 and 3. Right there. And so it's not 2 or 3. Keep going.
Down.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, one of the things that concerns me when I see that, well, the FAST, obviously you explained, it's a new monitoring system. It is an assessment. When teachers began this in August, I think, or September was the first test, no one had the questions. No one it wasn't that there was a booklet to prepare students in advance. So those questions that were given really captured an honest result here as to where students were if they had a full year's worth of learning in that grade level. But what about our ELL students? So I'm always still stuck with our ESE and our ELL students in terms of having them have language proficiency clearly on the FAST. I know that that's one of the topics that we discussed earlier for the legislative platform. But in real time, when they're in the classroom and they're doing this, by law, ELL students, English language learners, are supposed to receive a translation dictionary and any other possible translation subject area matter resources.
Correct.
Are they also given that when they sit before the FAST? What happens there? I mean, it's new, obviously, they only had 2 of these tests so far.
So when they sit for the exam, the final progress monitoring exam, PM3, they'll have those accommodations per their IEP or the ELL level, whatever the case may be. I know in the first assessment, they were not able to have those accommodations, and I don't think either in the second the one either.
For the second one, whatever, just when you were asking about the resources are available no matter where, even when they're testing for any other subject area, content tests.
Mm-hmm.
Those resources are available. Mrs. Mallets has made sure that all of those are available at the school, even before. And if they need additional ones, they would reach out to her. But whatever the IEP or whatever the accommodations are, those students would get those accommodations during the testing.
Well, ESC students would get their accommodations,
Mhm.
I know that. Even if you're a 504 student, you'll get the modifications that are, that are warranted for your special needs. But ESL or ELLs are a little different. And so they're required by law to have access to that.
And those resources are available.
Translation.
Those resources are available, we're in the middle of, I think last week we just started the WIDA testing as well, which is another, for our ELL students. We just started that testing as well. But I know those resources are available. Mrs. Mallets has gone to every school to make sure that they had them in July and August before we even started testing.
Yeah. I always wonder because when an ESL student goes to, and obviously many people know I have this year I've had 2 foreign exchange students. Both of them have requested information, obviously, about attending college or university here in America. And so the conversation about their home language has always come up and what the colleges and universities require for entrance, right? So for an average student, it's SAT, ACT, or something similar, whatever it might be. For an ESL student or an ELL student with limited English, Some colleges and universities will accept a language proficiency test. So instead of the SAT, they might require the TOEFL, which is the test of English as a foreign language, or the Duolingo. It's called Duolingo. There's an app, Duolingo, but then there's a test that even Harvard, it's like an online language proficiency test. So as I'm processing this with, my students, with my now one student, I always wonder, and it brings up the question of why don't we, and I know that we have requirements by the Florida Department of Ed, and I wonder if we can ever get to the conversation with the DOE, and I don't know if that would be DOE or legislative. Again, I'm just throwing this out there. For students who have low ESL, a lower level, they're here 1 year, they're here 1 day. They're still struggling in English. They might not be able to do well on the FAST. Why not give them an alternative, right? Give them the language proficiency and see what the equivalent might be for that one particular student until the student gets up to where they need to be, and then they can move on with the progress monitoring. And I don't know if that's ever been a question in your circle of superintendents.
So I was a principal of a school where only 7%, high school, where only 7% of the students were reading proficient, 7%. It was 97% Haitian Creole. And those are students and families who fought their way to America to have the American dream. Students had all A's and B's. But their limited time in the country and not being able to master the FSA at the time kept them from graduating.
Yeah.
So it has been a priority in many counties. And as that population continues to grow for us, it would be partnering with some of those counties to say, we know what the impact could be. And it was heartbreaking from a principal of 3 different high schools. Whether it was Haitian Creole or whether it was just Spanish, the tears would flow. Their tears would flow. Because I did everything you asked me to do, and you want me to pass a 10th grade assessment when I've only been in the country for 4 years or 5 years. But after that second year, so if I come in 8th grade, I have all of 8th grade and all of 9th grade. But in 10th grade, you're counting towards that school's grade and that district grade. And once again, it could be significant growth and commitment by the family, but it does not reflect on the overall state assessment. So I think we captured that today. We'll create a suggested priority for this board to consider.
I do have a question with the levels. On the bottom where the green arrow is pointing up, I know that that's growth. That represents growth. But the top level, so if we look at level 4, how I'm reading this is, first progress monitoring, we had 9% of students tested in level 4, and then we had 13% of students tested level 4. So there was growth there. Is that what I'm looking
Correct.
at? Not that there was an increase in growth, but that represents the actual percentage of students
3 and above.
who made that. Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank
The
you.
math, can we go to the math? Is that the math?
Yes.
I know you said that this is an area of significant need for growth and attention. I know during the pandemic, there were a lot of students, we've talked about math being a struggle area for a lot of students to learn online. And as a result, we have seen that firsthand, but we definitely need to do better. I mean, we just do.
No, and if you look at it, you can see our rate of growth, so we've improved 21%. So if the state continues at its average of 17 and we can continue at our average of 21, we'll outpace them. So.
Yeah, and I'm hoping so, and we've had this conversation on multiple occasions, that turning around a district doesn't happen overnight. Turning around a district you're not gonna see that immediate growth right away, because you're changing culture, you're changing protocols, you're changing policies and procedures, you're changing sometimes, personnel. You know, you're changing, the entire mindset has to shift. In this case, when you came in, you started to work on looking at data and providing specific instruction by really targeting the data in your school and what does that look like and making data-driven decisions. So I get it. I get the talent development. I get the professional development. I understand. We've had then a year of COVID, which kind of put a halt on things, and I'm tired of using that as an excuse, but it did happen. But here we are, and some districts, some schools even take 5 years to see that turnaround. It takes a while. So I'm trying to be patient, and we need to be patient, but we need to allow that time to see that growth. We need to, and now we have a new test. So that just kind of throws another curveball into the mix. But that being said, you know, I'm in favor of progress monitoring. I think it captures exactly what the student knows rather than teaching to the test. So I'm excited to see where we go moving forward on progress monitoring. I think it's an incredible tool for anybody. There are some free ones even online that could be given. I'm not recommending that for the schools, but I'm just saying there are some free ones that actually show where the student is and now and where instruction can change. And that's the key to progress monitoring, which I love. It's taking an individual student's report here and seeing where are some of the areas of need and then providing individualized instruction based on that. And that's where I think the differentiated instruction becomes key.
Okay, I'll wrap it up with a few comments. Thank you, Ms. Rosario. Dr. Moore, I understand exactly how you felt. We had more of a migrant population when I was principal at Sebastian River High School. They couldn't understand the language, speak the language, write the language, but they had to pass that test to get a diploma. It was tough. And you did everything you could to help with that. We talked a lot about discipline today at the workshop, especially Ms. Berenborg brought up information on cell phones and brought us some other district guidelines. They were excellent. And, you know, we'll continue to look at that with our code of conduct because we want to make sure our students are safe and they're there to learn. I don't know if I can say this enough, but I'm so very proud of the graduation rate. Mm-hmm. Again, as a former high school principal, I know how tough that is, and that's with everything being put back in the formula as far as graduation. The 24 credits at 2.0, passing the Algebra EOC or Geometry EOC, and the FSA 10th grade. I agree with what Ms. Rosario was saying about math and catching up, and one of the legislative priorities we were talking a little bit about today, which was on our handout, talked about summer school and maybe getting some extra money there. And I think that, I know we have a regular summer school with course recovery, and we have a regular summer school with direct math and English instruction, but I think there are, you know, still be years to come on what was the real impact of that pandemic and what can we do to help our children. I mean, it's just not us, it's the whole nation. So I would like to continue to look at that. So any other comments, board members? We'll move on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now go on to guidelines for citizen input, and then we will start with our citizen input. Each statement made by a member of the public shall be limited to 3 minutes duration. Persons will be recognized in the order in which the requests were received. The time shall start when the speaker is at the podium, and the school board attorney will be the official timekeeper. You will hear a beep at the end of your 3 minutes. Persons may speak up to 3 minutes at the beginning of a business meeting during citizen input as indicated on the order of business, and for up to 3 minutes to each action agenda item during the action agenda, and each board member discussion item, as indicated on the order of business. Persons may only speak once about any given item. Time period may be extended by the presiding officer. Only the individual submitting a speaker's form is allowed to address the board. Time may not be yielded to other speakers. During the meeting, please refrain from clapping or outbursts of any sort so that we can proceed with dignity and with decorum by not infringing on any individual's First Amendment rights. Need to remind everyone to direct all comments to the chairperson, not to individual board members or the superintendent. Board members may or may not address any citizen input statements at the end of all the citizen input comments. As board members listen to citizen input without interruption, citizens are asked to give board members the same respect. As per Florida Statute 1001372, subsection 3, the presiding officer of any district school board may order the removal from a public meeting held by the district school board of any person interfering with the expeditious or orderly process of such meeting, provided such officer has first issued a warning that continued interference with the orderly process of the meeting will result in removal. Speakers shall not engage in personal attacks or abusive language. Chairperson has the right to terminate any speaker's privilege to address the board if rule is violated. Okay, thank you. We have 4 speakers tonight. I'll call the first 2, so if somebody's on deck. First, we have Susan Meehill, followed by Jennifer Freeland. Thank you.
Susan Meehill.
Oh, I found some of that very interesting. Good evening. Good evening. Looking at the new year, I'm hoping we can concentrate our efforts on what I believe are our shared values and goals. We all agree, I hope, that learning to read and write in the early grades is critically important. Learning a core curriculum of English, math, history, and science, along with civics and government, should be a school's focus. Encouraging individual excellence should be at the heart of all you do. Learning good behavior, right from wrong, kindness, respect, and good citizenship are also important. And as a student matures, teaching them the keys to success include graduating from high school, getting a job, getting married, and then having children in that order is critically important. An important lesson to learn is respect for oneself as well as for others. And in a world where killing babies before they're born is a right demanded by many, it's hard to teach self-respect and worth, and that each person is special in their own right. Books about sex before marriage in any shape or form, incest or pedophilia, all demean the idea of self-worth and have no place in our libraries or classrooms. We're all adults. We know right from wrong. We all know sex is sex and it's wrong for every minor. Why we're waiting for age-appropriate guidelines from the state, I don't have a clue. But 2 books I would suggest we make sure are in our library is 1, The Real Race Revolutionaries, How Minority Entrepreneurship Can Overcome America's Racial and Economic Divides, or books like Created Equal by Clarence Thomas would be excellent books to have and be sure they're there. If we need to focus on good behavior and respect for all others, what better way than teaching the 10 Commandments? But oh no, many cry, not in our public schools. But a Supreme Court decision last June in favor of Coach Kennedy has changed all of that. As Justice Gorsuch wrote, the Constitution and the best of our traditions counsel mutual respect and tolerance, not censorship and suppression, for religious and non-religious views alike. The First Amendment is a natural outgrowth of the framers' distrust of government's attempts to regulate religion and suppress dissent. The decision tossed out the Lemon Test from 1971, which allowed the banishment of all religion from the public square and from our public schools. It's a time, in a time when we need to double down on teaching good behavior and self-respect. And we can only do that if we focus on the commandments our founders and Judeo-Christian religion felt important. It's time to do his work, and that's how we'll do it, not the same old thing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Jennifer Freeland, and then Jennifer Pippin.
Good evening to the board and Dr. Moore. I'm Jennifer Freeland, president of IRCEA, and I need to correct an egregious error I made last month when I spoke. I welcomed Dr. Pasca and congratulated Ms. Rosario to the board. And even though it was written down in my speech, I neglected to congratulate Ms. Barenborg for her return to the board, so congratulations. We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
I am putting the rest of my voice temporarily on hold on several issues, while SDIRC and IRCA continue to have problem-solving discussions and to give each party a chance to implement those solutions. Before I end, though, I would like to thank Ms. Barenborg and Dr. Jones for speaking up on behalf of teachers in the workshop this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Pippin, and then our final speaker is Thomas Kenny.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Pippin, and I'm the chairman for Moms for Liberty, Indian River, Florida. And I just wanted to speak on the Department of Education Library Committee. We are done with our work for now. It was passed by the state board. I know you guys talked about this in your workshop. You guys are so stuck on age appropriate. Now, the age-appropriate work group, they're not discussing what you think they are. If you would like to see what they're discussing, they are on Zoom on Wednesdays from 1 to 2, or you could also do a public records request and see what they're discussing in their meetings. They're talking more about, like you guys were talking about, the English language, what should elementary schoolers be learning to the standards and things like that. They're not talking about how much sex is appropriate in high school, how much sex in books or curriculum is appropriate for middle schoolers. So we need to get off of that, and if you don't believe me, again, you need to look at that age-appropriate work group and the work that they're doing. And to be honest, legislation and the current legislative session that's going to be going on is probably going to make more changes to this training because it's a working training than the age-appropriate group. The age-appropriate group is not tied to statute, so they don't have a timeline. It could be a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, or never, depending on the work group that they're doing. So it's very important to look at this training that we have now. And again, once that age-appropriate group is done, our group is going to get back together, and then it has to be approved by the DOE, approved by the state board again. So this is a working training, and it's going to, it's going to change throughout. And for those of you who haven't done the training yet, I would highly suggest it. It's 58 minutes. You can start it, you could stop it, you could start it, you could stop it. You don't have to listen to it consistently. I sent everybody on the board my changes and recommendations that were obviously not approved, but maybe improved in more time. But the most important part of the training that I wanted you guys to hear and know, we've been saying this since we challenged our first book here in Indian River County. So we weren't able to make the change then, but we were able to make the change to the DOE. And this is from slide 10 from the Department of Education training.
Media specialists should always err on the side of caution when selecting materials. It is good practice to assess whether or not you, as an adult, making book selection decisions, would be comfortable reading aloud the material in question in a public meeting. If you would not be comfortable reading the material in a public setting, then you should lean towards not making the material available in a public school library for children.
Thank you, Ms. Pippin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our last speaker, Mr. Thomas Kenny. Thank you. So good.
How y'all doing tonight?
Good, thank you.
Awesome. My name's Thomas. I'm here to talk about the 2260.02 race equity policy. And I went on the Florida DOE website and saw the response to Indian River County gave in regards to this policy. And I looked at the edits that were made, and I just want to point something out. It was said in the workshop today that we already have an anti-discrimination policy, and that's 2260. Actually, this particular policy that you're editing should be just deleted. You had listed it as deleted for the work group and for the workshop, and I think it should just be done away with. And here's why. Because whereas the anti-discrimination policy says that we're all equal here amongst our peers, and we practice these policies and procedural things that allow equality to be carried out. This policy does not. Because this policy, in the part that you did not edit, makes this assumption. To interrupt systems that perpetuate inequities, the superintendent shall invite and include people from all races and ethnicities to examine issues and find adaptive solutions which address the root causes and systems rather than technical solutions which provide one-time situational fixes. In other words, if there was an accusation of racism, the situational fix would be to adjudicate that case. But here it says the system itself is racist, yet we have a policy that says, no, we practice equality. So develop the personal, professional, organizational skills and knowledge of its employees to enable them to address the role and presence of racism. We don't have it according to 2260. We're weeding it out, and if a case of it arises, obviously you just take care of it, right? Through discipline or what have you. And so this policy just needs to be done away with. This is basically CRT in a nutshell for legal purposes. If you have a policy like this, we will never get out of the desegregation order, never, because this allows it to exist in perpetuity. Systemic racism. And the whole purpose of that is to have an argument so these people who have these organizations can continue to get paid. And I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Appreciate it. Okay, board members, we are now on to approval of the consent agenda item as amended. So I call for a motion to approve the consent agenda item as amended.
I make a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario. Second, Dr. Posca, I'm sorry. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, vote is 4-0, and I'm sorry, before I've been saying 5-0, so 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Posca. Okay. All right, so now we will go to items pulled from consent to action. And the first one we have, Dr. Moore, is yours, 9B, because we talked about that a lot today, 2520 and 2522. And so we will open the floor to you, and then we will go into any questions if we have them. Thank you.
Absolutely. And what we did, well, first, let me thank the board for engaging that conversation and meeting my request to get this done so we can be about the work and do the work. So what we did, Dr. Shafty, who's coming to sit next to Ms. Becerra, captured your feedback. We updated the policy aligned to those conversations. So it shouldn't be anything in which you have not discussed today. But as I said earlier, I just wanted to put it on an agenda so you guys can digest and see if there's anything in addition. Or I'm not seeing this. Dr. Shafty can explain whatever that would be. So I don't want anyone to feel rushed.
Do we have any copies of it, or?
Did we get copies of it?
It's online.
It's on.
Oh, okay, it is, all of it's updated, okay.
So Dr. Shafty, would you find it beneficial if she just quickly captured some of the revisions that she made?
I'm fine with that, yes.
And the new color is?
Yes, that would be part of what I need for her to cover. We now have a ninth color.
Is it green?
The new color is green.
Okay, that's what I thought.
All of the changes were captured from this afternoon's workshop. The one thing that may look a little bit different is there was a piece when we were talking about the procedures. Do the 20 days apply to state adopted or reading lists? So I thought it would make sense to take those phrases and put them under the state adopted instructional materials heading on page 2. So it's very clear that all of those phrases in green on the new page 2 apply to state adopted instructional materials.
Board members, any questions or comments regarding that one?
Just as you guys peruse the item, all we're doing tonight is setting it for public hearing. This is not approving the item. We're required to send it out for public hearing, and then we'll have the opportunity to hear from feedback after 30 days from our community.
I'm sorry, are you on 2520 or 22? 2520? What did you say you did?
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
'Cause I don't see.
When we were speaking earlier this afternoon, there was numbers 1 through 7 when we were talking about evaluation, selection, and adoption of instructional materials. And there were some loose phrases in there that we wanted clarity, that those phrases about the hearing and the 20 days were purely aligned to state-adopted instructional materials. So those phrases are now placed on the new policy on page 2, underneath the subheading state-adopted instructional materials.
Okay.
I think it captured pretty well what we were talking about. My opinion.
Thank you.
I do have one question, Madam Chair.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Page 5 of 6, Dr. Shafti.
Yes.
The above filing a petition, it says C policy 2522. What is that for?
That is
For the previous process to contest?
Yes, if they have the full scope of what to do, if you have a challenge or a petition, will be in 2522.
Can we put a space there between C policy 2522 and filing a petition? Because it looks like C policy 2522 is for filing a petition.
Understood.
As opposed to, also what I think it had before was the full title of that.
It did. I felt stuck because if we change the title of 2522 to align to 2520, then we have to go back and amend this. So I just left the policy number because that will stay constant.
Well, we're approving them all today. I mean, it's going for public thing today, so it's the same title that's in there now, right? The title's not going to change.
It already changed from challenges to objections, right?
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
So just to
It
capture.
just gives it a clear, so we understand, C policy 2522 is regarding the objections of
Dot, dot, dot.
dot, 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 yeah,
And
the
add,
title.
and all we're doing is adding the title
Right.
of 25,
22,
of 2522 and 2520, or whatever it is.
and a space between
Well, the space.
filing and filing a petition and that title.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
Anything else? Board members?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Pascal.
Yeah, as I said earlier, you know, we've been working on this for quite a while, and reading through it, I think it's fantastic. I think it's a huge improvement, so I appreciate everyone's working on it. Is it on? Hello? They gotta raise it. Hello, can you hear me? I think they just gotta, they gotta turn me up in there. I was saying that, you know, we've been discussing library materials and this topic for quite a while. And, you know, I'm very pleasantly surprised and happy to see an outstanding policy that we've all put together. You know, I just want to congratulate you on your good work. This is a huge step forward, I think, so good job.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if it's the will of the board, we would have to approve this item with the, making the recommended changes. We don't need to state the changes with the discussed changes, and then we can go back and add those changes that I can send to the board. We don't have to, so when it's a time for a motion, then that would be to approve these items with the discussed changes.
Okay.
I'd just like to say thank you for doing this so quickly.
And capturing what was said today.
Yes, she is. Yes, she's.
Yeah, that's very challenging. But like Dr. Posca said, we want to move it forward as best as possible. And we want to make sure it's right. So, all right.
So somebody make that motion.
So a motion to approve the items with the discussed changes. Do I have a motion?
So
Make a
moved.
motion. Oh,
Okay, Ms. Rosario?
I'll
And-
second. It doesn't
Okay,
matter.
Dr. Posca, Ms. Rosario. Any discussion, board members? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-0. We can get moving.
Board member matters.
Okay, we're good on.
We're doing the next one?
The next one is the
2522.
25.
okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Dr.
We just
Shafty.
did one.
Okay,
We just
okay, yeah,
voted
yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
one. Should we
Yeah,
vote
we
on?
just did one.
So
That was too easy.
They each have to be voted on separately.
Okay, so I kept with the same color scheme. Green represents the changes from today's workshop to clarify when those headings happen for a state-adopted instructional material. That has been clarified. When appropriate, parent/legal guardian has also been updated.
Right.
We changed the composition of the membership based on discussions today that there will be 2 instructional staff appointed by the superintendent and 1 alternate. And we also updated a number 5 based on Ms. Rosario's feedback for number 5. I did notice a typo, so if we could capitalize the E in education, that would be helpful in number 5.
You also added the word preferably.
Preferably, yes.
Okay, board members, any discussion, comments?
Yes. Give me 1 second. Let me find. Please. What page is this? I don't know what page this is. Hold on. Let me count again. 1,
I know.
4, page 4. Number 2, member qualifications, C. Might be something very easy, but a recommendation would be to keep consistent with the language in statute and in previous policies, where it states that the parent is a parent with a student in the district. If we can keep that language for C as well, with a child enrolled in the district, that just makes it consistent, with statute. The language stays consistent throughout.
Ms. Rosario, what page was that again?
4. And it's just identifying the parent, who the parent is, and other, in the statute, and then in the rule, in the training, and in 2520, at the beginning of this one here, 2522, who can object, the person who can object is a parent or a guardian with a student in the district. So keeping that same language throughout just kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Ms. Berenborg?
Does that mean a student, they have a student in a public school, or could it be also a charter school?
Charters are public.
No, I know that. I'm talking about, is that included in the district? Is that what you're referring to?
I did check with Ms. Shattuck that the district operated
Because sometimes we
school-
include charter and sometimes we don't. And I don't know if they're included on this.
The intent with that language for a district-operated school is a school in which this board has oversight of, so that would be our public schools.
Right, because are charter schools then under this?
They would have their own policies governed by their own boards.
Okay, so then the parents that are on this committee need to be parents who have children in our schools that we are in control of.
That's at the will of the board.
Okay. That's why I asked specifically whether or not that charter schools were included. Okay.
There's consensus. Dr. Moore, you're okay with that?
I don't want to unsay anything that I said. I think we need to be consistent. So if we're being consistent, I don't know that changing it changes anything. I don't think that it changes it. District operate, I think, what does it say now? I'm sorry, what does it say now?
District operated.
District operated
But in-
versus just whatever you just said
It's-
means the same thing.
A child enrolled in the district.
Just, I want to be, a child enrolled in the district is a district operated
In the
school. In our schools.
But it's consistent with the language, so it just makes a big difference.
Can I ask?
Go ahead, Ms. Berenberg, I'm sorry.
Is a child enrolled in our district, would that include, that could include a virtual child?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Okay, because.
Yeah, virtual child
Yep.
Okay,
in our virtual program, yes.
Got it.
That's our school.
okay. I just want to make sure everybody's
left.
on the same page.
So if we have the same item, approve it with the discussed changes, I think we would be fine.
Okay, any other comments, board members?
No.
Think we're good to go? I'm glad we did this, Dr. Moore.
So you're gonna make the
And I'm
changes?
glad that Dr. Shafty brought this back to us. But as far as moving forward, I don't like this.
No,
I mean, it's
I
hard
don't,
to do.
and I thank you so much,
It's hard
because
to do.
this is the opportunity for us to put our feet to the ground
Right.
and move this work forward.
And like I said, you wanna
think
do it
we
right.
all have been waiting long enough, our community's been waiting long enough, staff has been waiting long enough.
I agree.
We need to get this done. So
When I look at
typically
these,
don't rush, but the meeting was the 18th, and we have a board meeting now, and I said, let's just go.
all right, good. All righty. So, approve this item with the discussed changes. Could I have a motion on 2522?
I make a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario.
Second.
Second, Dr. Posca. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Moore, Dr. Shafty, all board members for looking at this with detail. I appreciate it. All right, our next consent item that was moved to action was 11B. Ms. Rosario, approval of educational facilities supplementary plant survey, number 6, version 3, disposal of vacant property.
Yes, Dr. Moore, if it's okay, can I turn it over to Mr. Bass, who mentioned earlier that we might want to reconsider this for whatever the reasons were, and then we can engage in a conversation, if that's okay?
Mr. Bass.
I know you say it so much better than I.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Through the chair. Again, this is a process and a step that we have to go through the Department of Education for the fish report, basically getting them to do a spot survey to approve to discard or dispose of these properties. Since we're not going to move on the actual sale or disposal of them at this time, it is really up to you which way you want to go. You could go ahead and approve this now, and it's in place before we do it. I do not believe that there will be any type of issues whether we do it next month or 8 months from now. Or you can wait and we can approve it prior to right when we want to do it. It really does not matter either way.
So just one clarifying question. Would we be able to approve them, both items at the same meeting, or does this need to be done before the actual sale?
I think Molly's shaking her head, one needs to be done before the other one, doesn't it? It doesn't at the same time?
Yes, through the chair. They can be done at the same meeting. What's necessary is that you do approve a spot survey declaring property as no longer needed for educational uses if you are going to dispose of it.
So based on that, my recommendation is that I withdraw this item, and once we have a final decision regarding that property, we can bring it back and have those two items approved together.
I agree. Any board discussion on that? I think that's probably the best idea on that one. Mr. Bass, do you agree with that too?
I'm at your pleasure.
I know, but
That's
still.
good. Yes.
I mean,
I would rather, could you mind if I?
Go ahead.
I would like to move on the sale of them, but if we're not ready to do that as a group, I don't see why we can't table this and bring it back. That's fine.
Yeah. All righty,
Done.
thank you. So We have removed this item. There's no action on it, no vote.
They don't need a vote?
To remove the item?
I would suggest just voting that you want to remove the item.
All right. So the motion is, Dr. Moore, to remove this item until a later date?
Yes.
Okay. I have to get a board member,
I'll
a
make a
motion.
I'll make a motion to move this item to a later date.
Thank you. I just
I'll
wanted-
second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries 4-0. I think that's a good decision. All right, now the discussion, Ms. Rosario, you're the next one on the library book
Yeah.
from our workshop this afternoon. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
There's a public hearing on Neola policy.
Oh,
I'm still on consent to action. So, and then I have the public hearing next.
She just added that, Ms. Rosario added that to her discussion.
discussion, not
Has to be-
action.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, thank you. I'm sorry. I thought I wanted to discuss it here. All right, now we have a public hearing and adoption of Neola policies update, December 12th. The school board moved approval to set a public hearing date to adopt a revised district school board policies. The purpose of the revision is to be consistent with present practice and legislation. The policy change process was followed in accordance with Florida statutes under Florida Administrative Procedures Act, Chapter 120, Rulemaking and School Board Bylaws 0131. So the policy is 6320, Purchasing and Contracting for Commodities and Contractual Services, Policy 9200, Volunteers, and Policy 2430.01, Special Programs by Community Volunteers. Okay. The item deals with adoption of Neola policies 9200, 6320, and 2430. Dr. Moore, have you documented that this public hearing was properly advertised in accordance with state statutes?
Yes, I have.
Okay. We now recess the meeting to conduct the public hearing as advertised. The public hearing is now in session. Dr. Moore, are there any written responses to the advertised public hearing to be read at this time?
Not at this time.
All right. The public is invited to address this issue at this time. Is there an individual representing an organization or his own personal or public interest who wishes to speak? Anyone here? Okay. The chair concludes that the announced public hearing on the adoption of Neola policies 9200, 6320, and 243001 has been conducted pursuant to notice, and that ample opportunity to address this issue has been provided to all. The board meeting is reconvened at this time. Call for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario. A second.
Second.
Second, Dr. Posca. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, any opposed? Any discussion? Okay, the vote carries 4-0 for our public hearing. Thank you very much. All right. Superintendent's report, are you good with that, Dr. Moore?
Yes, I move that forward.
Okay. School board member matters. I'm sorry, we can go into discussion now. We had discussion from a carryover from our workshop regarding a library book, and I added some information on time for our workshops and discussion. So, Ms. Rosario, we'll start with you, please.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One of the board members, one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you all was a book that I was looking for to receive, to read, and to review some time ago. This is going back as far as July, I'm going to say July of 2022. It is The Handmaid's Tale. I have it now in my possession. I received it in December. This book was taken out by a board member, and then shortly after that, sorry, let me back up. This book was taken out and borrowed by a board member in May of 2022. In July of 2022, I requested the book through the superintendent. The superintendent was unable to get the book. I requested it again in August, in September, and still no response, no possible, you'll get the book or I'll be done with it in a week, or I'll return it soon. No, there was absolutely nothing. It was completely ghosted on the request to receive the book for my own so that I can review it. Nonetheless, one of the issues that I have, so I come full circle not to discuss the content of the book or to discuss any board member in particular, but I do want to bring to notice the request and the courtesy of working together with colleagues. So if someone is asking for something, of course, out of respect, respond to the people who are trying to get that accomplished so that one person can get the work done, so that the other person can get some work done. The other thing is we were told in December, I believe it was in our first December meeting, sorry, I have a stiff neck, when Dr. Posca joined, that we would have a subsequent meeting on board protocols so that Dr. Posca can come on board with board protocols, and have time to kind of review that. We haven't had a date in which we would do that. And one of the things that I would like to do is add something as a result of this to board protocols. So when are we going to do that?
So that is the first thing on my list for updates this week. So I want to lock down a date, and I want feedback for upcoming board workshop on the actual process in which we conduct that meeting. So I want to brainstorm and then bring a public meeting. I think at our next workshop, we'll lock down a date and time, as well as the actual process and items in which will be discussed.
Okay. Because something, as we're talking about library books, and I know Ms. Besura is here, something that was of interest when I first got it that has come up was a discussion about this book and the content of this book versus another book of the same title. And here's what's interesting, which I think would be important in terms of moving forward with library, media center specialists and all that. There's a training coming up. Dr. Shafty's not here, but the ISBN number in this book is different than the ISBN number that's recorded in Follett. The one with the graphic pictures is the one that is identified in Follett. So we've got a wrong ISBN number.
In Follett.
No, because there is a book, yes, in Follett. So the one that's in Follett identifies a book that's not in the school building that has the graphic pictures, and then this one that does not have the right ISBN is the one that was borrowed, is identified as borrowed, but it's not the same book that's recorded in Follett. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to take a look at it, because there was all of this controversy about which book has the pictures and which one doesn't, which one has the ISBN. So we finally came down to what was the issue, and I wonder if when going into Follett, how many other books have this issue too. So I think in the weeding process, as we were talking about earlier, and I know Ms. Besura is taking notes, in that weeding process, I think we also have to take a look at properly matching up the correct ISBN number with the correct book so that there aren't any confusions in this manner. And moving forward, we don't have to worry about that issue. Okay, thank you.
Sure. I'll be happy to talk about it since I'm the one that had the book. I checked the book out because, of course, I was very concerned when somebody held up that version of the book and said that we have these graphic images of that kids could see. I was very concerned about that. I didn't want kids to be able to see pictures like that. So I went and checked the book out, and there are no pictures in the book. And I had the book for a long time because I was bringing it to forums, running for re-election, as you know. I held it up several times and said there are no pictures. I offered to show it to lots of people. I also used it because I wanted to have it available as I was looking at the work group and watching the work group meeting. Because I'm concerned about ISBN numbers, very much so. Because there are different versions of books, and that's why I was so concerned. I don't want bad books in our schools, but I also am very, very concerned, and I know people don't like the word banning books, but that's what it is. We got to be very careful that we are banning the correct versions and being very careful that when you hold up a book and you say it's got horrible graphic pictures, you better be right. And that didn't happen. Request and courtesy. Interesting that you bring those words up, because I think that you're right. I think for board protocols, we need to also look at a couple other things. We need to look at perhaps board members signing in and signing out when they visit schools. You know, we talked about that, having done that in the past, and that doesn't really happen all the time. We make other people do that. We should be doing that. When I go to school, I demand the book, and they say, oh, no, you don't have to do it. No, 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 give me the book.
Yeah.
I want a record that I was here. I know we have cameras everywhere, so there's a record. But I want to make sure that, you know, if we're going to be courteous and responsive, we need to do that. Speaking of that, you know, how about the number of minutes that board members use of the superintendent? You know, if we're doing that, maybe we should ask him to document how many minutes he spends with each board member. That's very courteous. Is how much time are we taking away from him where he could be using it for the betterment of children? Because let's face it, is this really a concern right now for what's best for kids? Or is this political grandstanding? And that is part of why I kept the book, because I didn't want it to be political grandstanding. I wanted it to be about focusing on children. That's what we are elected to do. Focus on the needs of children, not getcha of other board members. Because if that's the case, then maybe we should also look at board members documenting, you know, taking time from staff members.
All right, thank you, Ms. Berenborg. We're going to go around here now. Dr. Posca, do you have to add anything? No. Okay, couple things. I know we had talked about master board training, and it was expensive, so we kind of put a hold on that. But I do agree, and I'm going to look right at Dr. Jacobs, that with a new board member, that we talk about protocols to see if we still feel good about them, again, with the new board member, and where we need to go on that. I always think the discussion is good because, you know, what we do with policy and a contract superintendent and school board attorney and all of our main responsibilities, approving budget and so forth, it's very important on how we present ourselves as a board. So continuing looking at that on what we can do to get a little better there, I think is important. The information, you know, I'm not going to comment on everything that's been said so far, but I just think that if we continue to update ourselves, you know, we're all lifelong learners, we know that, and how we can be a better board and how we can better serve our students in our community and our parents. And I know nobody has an extra 4 hours, but if you take a look at the workshop we had today, it was passionate. And it was passionate because every board member believes we are here for our students and that we want to support our teachers and our administrators, and we want the parent engagement and the communication. That is absolutely essential, especially in today's time. So I understand everyone's concern, and maybe we can look at adding something to our board protocols. I don't know, because that has to be consensus, but it's something to talk about. But from all angles, you know, from all angles, what can we do better? What can we do better so that Dr. Moore and his district staff can run the day-to-day of this school district? And when I first came on, I had a little issue with that because I had a good foundation stuff, but I backed off. I know that that is your job. You have a huge job to do. And like I said before, a lot of things have had a real shift because you're here. But there's still issues we'll always look at because we always have to improve. So good discussion, understanding. Any more?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up.
Okay.
I didn't mention any board members' names to avoid politicizing this, but clearly that was not the case. So if we're going to talk about political grandstanding, it would be, Mrs. Berenborg, you were elected in August. You didn't return the book until December.
No, I did return it
hold it.
earlier.
Okay, and I understand that.
Let me speak,
Both of you are
please.
saying the same
Let
thing.
me speak, please, because this
Okay,
was,
just,
I have
I'm
the
just
t-
saying,
I
as
have
the
the
board
floor.
member,
I have
board
the
chair,
floor.
I can interrupt, so I'm just saying, I understand what you're saying.
But I have the floor.
You do.
You cannot, according to Robert's rules, you cannot interrupt me when I have the floor.
Is that correct, Molly? I'm sorry. In our protocol, we talked about that.
No, we talked about,
I understand.
So the chair runs the meeting, so the chair can interrupt, but the board protocols do talk about, being respectful, so an interruption should only be to keep the meeting on track or, to otherwise follow protocols and rules, not just for the purpose of interrupting.
Got it. Go ahead, Ms. Rosario.
so, so that would be holding on to the book for a long time. There was a possession of the book for 7 months. So whether at least when I got a hold of it, it wasn't until December. When it was returned, I'm not talking about that. It's when I finally got a hold of it. So, and yes, this does matter, because had it not been in the possession of a school board member that entire time, it could have been in the schools. And so if we're talking about it being a student issue, it is a library book. It belongs in the library at this rate. Now I have borrowed it so that I can review it myself. But it is timely and it is appropriate for us which is what I didn't want to do, is talk about a particular board member. But what I did want to mention was the ISBN number, which is critical to the process of which we are entering in terms of reviewing library books, the protocols for it, the processes, and obviously the weeding out and the future procedures for that, which we discussed today, will be forthcoming. So that is important.
ISBN numbers, are you? Okay, are you finished, ma'am?
No. So that's what I was discussing. That's why I brought it up, and that's why I did not bring up another board member, because I did not want it to be politicized.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Berenborg?
Sure. The book was purchased on July 27th, 2005. It was checked out once, January 20th, 2009. Check out again, March 18th, 2009. 10 years later, it was checked out once on August 19th, 2019, and then I checked it out. So it's not like it was a high-demand book. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of books in this district. You could have picked out any other book, but it was the one I happened to have and was using, and you knew that.
That's right.
Okay,
And-
ladies,
and
I'm
so
going
I'm
to
just-
call the question and
All
end
right.
the discussion.
That's right.
Can I do
But
that, Molly?
Can I at least
Cannot
wrap
do-
up
Nope,
my conversation?
You cannot
Oh.
you cannot call the question.
Miss-
Point of order.
Ms. Shattuck,
Point
Ms.
of
Rosario,
order.
just for a moment,
Ms. Shattuck,
please.
point of order.
She
Point
can't
of
call it.
order
I'd
can
like
be
to close the
called by
discussion.
anyone at any time, and it can be interrupted. Point of order. Robert's Rules of Order, Mrs. Shattuck, states that you cannot call the question when you do not have the floor, and you cannot interrupt. You cannot interrupt to call the question unless you have the floor, correct?
And I was speaking, so I was
That's
the one
right.
interrupted.
And I didn't interrupt her, by the way.
No, she
No.
didn't.
It was the board chair.
Yes, so to the chair, that is correct. To call the question would be when nobody is speaking. This also isn't an action item. So I would say, though, as we just discussed a moment ago, the chair can interrupt if they think that there is a purpose to interrupt, such as they need to keep the
Yeah.
meeting running in line.
I wanted to finish my sentence, though, if I could.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I wanted to say, let's move on. We've all agreed to the policy that we're going to move forward. We've gotten past a lot of ugliness. I don't disagree that we don't want horrible books in our schools. Stop making me the enemy. Let's move on. Let's work together as a board. And let's move forward. Okay? I'm not running against you. There's no reason to create this and continue this. Just let's move on.
Any other participation or comments regarding this?
I do have another comment, but it's not about this. Oh, well, it might be. It's a follow-up. May I?
Well, the discussion we're on right now is this one. So is this another discussion item? Or?
No, it's, it could be, but it's about Robert's rules.
Okay.
So I would like, I think, Molly, we need, Ms. Shattuck, and Dr. Moore, both of you. I think at some point, we need a review of Robert's rules and parliamentary procedure, because it has happened in the past where parliamentary motions have been just kind of thrown out there in the ether just because, and we need to follow the proper protocols for that. So at some point, I guess, Molly, Ms. Shattuck, you have been one for talking about training is one of the things that you do. So I think in this area, it would be critical in order for these meetings to move forward appropriately. Dr. Moore?
This is a big book. Molly's got it. I think she can. Here you go, Molly. But I honestly agree. Having the opportunity to refresh, there used to be, I think you just held it up, matter of fact, those cards. Is that what you held up before?
Yes.
I think putting that, I don't see that at everyone's station, including my station, but that might be a good starting point, and review that, just to keep us normed.
Okay, any other comments regarding that?
I'll just say
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to remind everyone, we're working on passing an excellent book and media review policy, and hopefully we will never discuss The Handmaid's Tale again.
Amen.
All right, so now we go into my discussion item. After our meeting today, I think we started at 12, we ended about 4:30. Since the superintendent and the chair set the agenda, I would like to work with the superintendent, take a look at how many items we have and maybe pushing that meeting up a little bit so we don't run over. I think if we could have a little bit of time, either from 4 to 5:30 when we have the presentations, or even 3:30 to 5:30 where people can do what they need to do or get something to eat, and set up this room. So once we look at our next discussion or workshop, I'd like to work with you to see if that 12 o'clock time is sufficient to get everything in during that time, and then not have to bring it to our school board meeting where we have a lot of things to discuss. So I just wanted to bring that up for discussion if anybody has any input or comments.
That's fine with me. I'm here all day anyway.
I'm open to moving it up to 11:30 if we think it's necessary.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Rosario, any comments?
Sometimes I'm available at 11:30 only because, I have kids. And my obligations are not always free at 11:30. I'm not always available at 11:30. But that said, I do know that today was a different schedule because we didn't meet 2 weeks ago or a week ago,
Correct.
whatever it was. So there is a lot of things that would have been on our schedule 2 weeks ago or last Monday that would have relieved us of some talking points today. That said, moving forward, if we could keep to the 2 meetings a month, or the 2 workshop and board discussion, I don't think that there would be a need for us to meet at 11:30. So I think on those days that we have a lot of things on the agenda, if we can then consider meeting at 11:30, so that this way it doesn't burden my schedule with my kids. But next month, it shouldn't be that way. I mean, we shouldn't need to meet at 11:30 for both meetings.
So I I concur, and I would welcome the opportunity to meet with the chair to see if, in a rare circumstance, that we do need to do that. But let me remind the board, y'all got through more than you have today in the 3 years that I've been here, just being honest. What we were able to accomplish today, from workshop to business meeting, was significant. So acknowledge the amount of work that was done.
Right, in the discussion, I thought, let's take a look at the agenda, and if we have to adjust, we will. I think we ran over one other time when, and that's not bad, where we couldn't complete everything, so I do want to work with you on the timeliness on that, Dr. Moore.
I agree.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Just keep in mind also, we don't I keep saying this, we don't need to have board discussion sessions. They're great, they're wonderful, they give us time to talk, but we have space in our board meeting for board discussion. That's what that space is for. It's not meant for us, I mean, a lot of districts just have the superintendent workshop and they don't have discussion session because it's on their board meeting. And some people don't even have both of those, and they do everything at their board meeting, which is why their board meetings go longer. I'll repeat this as I've said before. When I joined the board, we didn't have a discussion session at all. We only added the discussion session because of a lot of the controversies that we were faced at the time, changing superintendent, and there were a lot of issues before us, so we needed the time to talk, but we don't necessarily need it. So if a workshop or a discussion session is too full, add it to the board meeting. That's what the board meeting is for. It's for us to conduct the business of the board.
When was the last actual board discussion we had that was separate from most of them are workshops, if I recall.
Today would be the perfect, there were a number of items that were brought forward by board. Typically, what I do is bring the action items during workshops so we can fully discuss them.
Can I make a comment about that?
Sure.
I agree that we had a lot of items in the past, and that's part of why we had such a lengthy one, but I also remember us saying, let's move them to the day because we were tired at the end of the day, and it was getting to be 11 o'clock at night when we were getting home from board meetings. I don't know about you, but I don't know if you want to function at 11 o'clock at night making these decisions. So that was part of the reason why board discussions were moved to the day. I'm fine with moving, if we have a bunch of them, move some of them to the day and move some of them at night, whichever, and let a board member decide.
Correct.
I want to discuss this during the day, or I want to discuss this at night. That's fine. I'm fine with that. I just think that the reason why it was done is just so we're not here late at night.
Okay.
Can I also make a point in terms of our agenda itself, since we're on this discussion? Our agenda, typically the superintendent presents the superintendent's report at the onset, at the beginning of the meeting anyway. So why don't we just move that to the beginning? Instead of every meeting, him saying, I'll present first, just on the actual whatever it is, just move it there. So it's always at the beginning. It just makes sense.
I have no issues with that. You're right. I just don't have a presentation every month, so I have no issues putting it right after that. That's
But that's
a good
okay,
idea. Yeah.
because then you say I have nothing to report.
Okay.
And it is better because more people are here then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I'm trying to leverage, so good idea.
Okay, before we go into board member matters, any other discussion related to the last one? Okay, who would like to start with school board member matters?
I don't mind.
Cesario?
He seems to have anything to say. So I attended, as some may not know, I attended the Code of Conduct meeting and the Code of Conduct Advisory Committee meeting where community members, parents, and others came to provide feedback on different parts of our Code of Conduct, since our Code of Conduct is in the process of being revised, updated, and then to eventually come to the board for a vote. This is a good time for us to discuss code of conduct, things for the code of conduct or issues for the code of conduct. As we did earlier with regard to the cell phones, I think it's prudent of us to tackle some of these discussions together, because at the same time as Ms. Dampierre leads that committee and that group, I think it provides feedback for her and the decisions that that group makes before it actually comes to us for a vote, rather than doing the other way around and kind of chasing our tails. So I appreciate the work that you all are doing. I do, as I've mentioned before, I do anticipate multiple meetings. Do we know when the dates are so we can mention them now?
We have next week, and then we'll schedule out the rest when we have that group together for the remainder.
Okay, so February 6th is the next Code of Conduct meeting from 6 to 7:30 here. February 6th from 6 to 7:30 here in the TEC. If anyone is interested in coming, joining, and sitting in on the Code of Conduct and providing feedback for that, you're always welcome. The community is always welcome. So I think that's incredible, an incredible opportunity. We also had, Dr. Moore, just some questions here. What is the update on the online anonymous reporting kind of system? Anything updated on that?
So the team is working on that. I anticipate having it by the end of this week.
Okay. And I know that I questioned this prior. What about an online portal system or somewhere where we can put all of our proclamations?
So I briefly had a conversation with Nancy, like a hallway conversation.
They are already there on board docs in the library? Oh. For many years. Can we search them to make sure that we don't repeat a proclamation or something? Is it easily searchable by keyword or something? Okay, that's good to know.
Progress.
It's good to know. Because as I'm thinking of some of these proclamations, I wonder how maybe we did this already. And so many years going back, I mean, I haven't been a board member that long. I'd hate to have something repeated if it's already been done. Okay, thank you. I went to, obviously, the Stars of the Year event. Such a great event, Kristen, Miss Maddox, and your entire team. You do such a great job on that. Thank you so much. And it's so much fun. I think one of the Teacher of the Year from last year, I think it was, I don't even remember who it was, who said, this is a time for us to celebrate and have fun and, just get to know each other and kind of fellowship. And it was wonderful. It's such an exciting, exhilarating time to celebrate our faculty and our staff. So thank you for that. The library, media, and instructional materials training, that training has been ongoing in our discussions, and I'm grateful that we've been able to have those discussions. I mentioned earlier today that I probably watched it 3 times at least, and the PDF and the handout is, I encourage everybody to watch it. It is public facing, so anybody can watch it. Not everyone can be certified because you have to have that certification, which is the Library Media Center Specialist Certification. But for the most part, it is available in public facing for anyone. We have had, as board members, we have had Ms. Jennifer Pippin serve on that committee, on that work group, and really give tirelessly of her own personal time to not only participate in that committee, but also to travel up to Tallahassee on her own dime, volunteer, multiple times just to be able to sit and provide input to this committee in this work group. I keep saying committee, but in this work group. her and some other parents from another county. So I just wanted to thank you publicly for your work involved in that and your willingness to work with district staff and to always be present, especially concerning this topic. Really, your feedback to the team that you worked with has been critical. And I think it added the gravity of a lot of these topics in these slides. You had direct impact on, and based on your volunteer, work on this, you actually helped craft a training that is now going to be given to every school in every district in the entire state of Florida. So thank you and congratulations.
Ms. Rosario, I was going to ask each board member too to update on any committee that they've attended that were assigned to. Any updates?
No, I haven't had any committees this week or last week.
Okay.
For the month of January, it's only been, I think I have one coming up next week.
Okay. All right. Ms. Berenborg?
Want me to go next?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Teacher of the Year, Employee of the Year. So much fun dressing up. I really enjoy that. Thank you so much. I can't wait for next year's theme. Please let us know earlier. The MLK Parade was wonderful. Thank you again for your work on that as well. I know, we just show up and get on a float, but I know there's a lot of work that's involved in that, so we appreciate that. Thank you, board members, for listening to my calls about cell phones, because I've been listening, and I've had a lot of teachers all of a sudden that are willing to talk to me. And not that they're not willing to talk to me other times, but they heard that I had already asked other teachers about the cell phone issues, and then all of a sudden, everybody was coming out of the woodwork and telling me their story about what was going on. I don't think people are aware of some of the stuff that's going on with cell phones. And if parents were aware that their kids were on these sites or saw these sites or created these sites or picking on people, especially kids and teachers, I think they would be really shocked and saddened. So I appreciate you listening to that, and I'm hoping that that is stressed with the Code of Conduct Committee, that that is something that we really need to look at, and also follow through with as far as our administration on helping teachers do the right thing in the classroom with that. I have been on Treasure Coast Council of Local Governments. We did not have our meeting. It got postponed, so we will meet next week. I think it's next week. And then zoning and planning, same thing. I had a conflict, so I think I meet with them again this Thursday. They moved their time up an hour, and I didn't know, so I got there at the end of the meeting the other day and went, oh, I'm early. And they said, no, actually, we just finished up. So now I know they moved the time, and I can be there for that. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Dr. Pasco?
I have no committee updates, and in the interest of expediency, I'm going to hold my board comments.
Teacher of the Year, Employee of the Year, the dinner at Captain Hiram's, the event was wonderful. A lot of work there, you and your team, thank you. Vero Beach volleyball groundbreaking.
That's right.
Dr. Moore, you're right. I went by it the next day when we had the gala. That thing was already piled, it was rolling. And that will be wonderful. Our Vero Beach girls went to state finals last year, and they were runner-up, so that will be cool. Hope you can get to a game. Attended the Florida Music Educators Association conference, and I just want to say Indian River County is represented with class. Our music teachers, our band teachers, chorus teachers who were there, and they're very grateful that this district supports these extracurricular activities in fine arts and athletics. Now working with Nancy on the Agnes Peebles, we met with our high school principals to start the procedure and applications. Most scholarships are due around March 15th, so if you have a student, please have them look at the Vero Beach High School website, Sebastian River High School website. I work on a couple other scholarship committees, and they're all due around that time. So get working on it now. And if you need help, we have a person at each high school that can help students and parents with these applications. I attended the Rosewood PTA the other night because they had training for all other schools, and it was really, really nicely done. We had probably representation from 6 or 7 schools, and our PTA president at Rosewood, first name is Tara, she's a former student, I can't remember, Michael Marsh, did a wonderful job. Dr. Moore, Eric Seymour, Dr. Shafty, and I are on the DSEC work group meeting. These are now on YouTube. You can watch them for the public. We're working hard on that. We won't give up. We are looking at key performance indicators for each of our areas, and we'll just keep moving forward. Science fair coming up. My committees, Economic Development Council did meet. We didn't have a quorum, so couldn't really move on anything. We're talking a lot about career in tech. Had a presentation that day, and our 2 people, Tom Lang and Christine Bird, did a great job. Bellsworth Planning and Zoning, the last one was canceled. We have another one next week. Executive roundtable's coming up. And just a reminder, I know board members know this, but the ethics training was to be completed by December, so make sure you're good on that. And the last thing that I want to say, if we do go into training or review of protocols, a special thank you to Dr. Jacobs, because when we look at this, and when Dr. Moore talks about this all the time, you know, our key discussion, our key point should always be student achievement. So I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 8:05.